How do you stay employed at a church as a children's minister? Let me give you several specific guidelines. This actually isn't from me, but from a dear friend of mine, Steve Gross, who works for Christ Church of the Valley in Peoria, Arizona. He's been at this game a long time. He lives, breathes, eats children's, well, he doesn't eat children, but children's ministry. He loves it. Here's what he says. Number one rule of children's ministry: plagiarize or die. Now, obviously, if you take someone else's material, give them credit, just like I did with Steve. But look, you're trying to come up with lessons for multiple age groups in children's ministry every week, 52 weeks a year. Yeah, good luck with that without plagiarizing. Don't try to reinvent the wheel, and don't try to write your own curriculum. Second, Steve said, you got to have professional development. If you're not going to conventions, if you don't have this kind of accountability group that I mentioned earlier, if you don't have a mentor, maybe from another town, you really are working with a handicap. Try to find other people around who are doing the same kind of thing and get yourself some professional development. Third bit of advice he gave to me is be communicative. Over-communicate. One of the strange things about ministry is, for those of us who are inside the church 5 to 8 days a week, we're in the building, we're serving people, we keep hearing the same mantras over and over again. You know, when this Christmas cantata is going to be, when the Easter sunrise service is, and we think we do a great job with communication. Normally, we don't. It takes 7 points of communicative contact before an outsider feels like they have the inside information. So if you're trying to communicate something to parents, let's say you're trying to communicate a time for a skating party. You need to put a banner outside the front that gives the time of the skating party. And then when they come in, you shake their hands. Now, you know the skating party's at 2:30. And then you give a little take-home bulletin to the kid that the time is at 2:30. And then you get a tattoo specialist come and tattoo 2:30 to the forehead of all the children. Whatever it takes, you have to think about 7 points of communicative contact before it's going to stick. You can vary those between emails, phone calls, and text. And anymore, text is about as good as anything for communicating with parents. It's quick, it's pretty easy for you. A lot of people don't check their email but every few days, but text seem to be more instant for them. But however you do it, you need to over-communicate, especially when you're dealing with people's children. You want to send someone to another church quick, then let them feel like you have dissed their children or abused their children in some way. Little Johnny is the apple of mommy's eye, and you need to make sure that every little Johnny and every little Julie feels specially in communication. So their parents know exactly what's going on. Here's a fourth bit of advice. He said, you got to recruit volunteers. We talked about this earlier. From the parents who are dropping people off, give them wins. They will be willing to volunteer. We do live in a volunteer culture. Don't feel like that's a hard ask. When you get a volunteer, you are giving them the opportunity to carry out the Lord's will in their child's life. That should not be an embarrassment to you. You just get it in your head. You are not asking people to help you. You are giving them the opportunity to carry out the Lord's will in their child's life. Here's a few more. If you want to stay employed for a long time at a church and children's ministry, then you have to understand that the target audience is not the child, but the parents, particularly the fathers. You're not trying to impress the elders. You're not trying to impress the minister. You're not trying to babysit the kids. You are trying to help a father know how to be the priest of his home. Here's the fifth one. Don't hide the problems from the leaders of your church. If you've had a kid falls down and gets hurt because you design the room improperly. It is way easier for a staff to absorb a problem than it is to discover one without them. If you have made a mistake, own it quickly. In other areas of ministry, like music ministry, if they hit a wrong note, the stakes are not as high. There is no ministry where the stakes for a mistake are higher than yours. We're talking about lawsuits and prison sentences. Make sure that if a mistake is made, you bring it out in the open immediately, so everyone from the senior minister to the elders to the council for the church knows what they're going to be dealing with. Here's one last one. You are not, this is going to hurt, you are not a minister. You are an administrator. Your job is not to care for the spiritual needs of every child that comes through. Now the pastor, they've got to, go to the hospital and do funerals. They're caring for the flock. Your job is just a little above that. I know you love the kids, and you wouldn't be in children's ministry if you didn't love children. And obviously, every week you get to hug kids, and every week you get to love on kids and laugh with kids and play with kids. That is the sweet spot. But your most important role is not for you to hug a child, but for you to create a system that works so that parents can hug children, that volunteers can teach classes. Your most important work is not on Sunday morning. It's on Monday morning. Make sure that all of your volunteers are in place, prepared, and empowered for the ministry to which God has called them to do. You do that, you could probably go to heaven happy. Jesus said something like this, "For as such of these is the kingdom of heaven."